It's Tuesday, March 9th, and this is now on HNN.
It is a dramatic action.
The National Guard is deployed to a New York suburb to help combat the coronavirus. We'll tell you about the plan to contain the outbreak in one of the largest clusters in the U.S.
I'm Michael George with the drastic changes universities, businesses, and even the United Nations are making to stop the spread of coronavirus.
And what's being done to protect those most at risk?
Older people can be in great danger.
6 more states weigh in on the presidential primary. I'm Natalie Brandon, Michigan, with what's at stake here and how candidates spent their final hours of campaigning in Detroit.
I think the thing that I love most about the new version of this movie is that you get to see a lot of those same elements and scenes and moments, but in grand, glorious scale.
These stories, plus we'll take you to the MULAN red carpet, coming up on This Is Now.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Jonathan, your director-producer, alongside Ashley here. We have some breaking news from the leeward side we want to get right to.
So firefighters are responding to a 2-alarm house fire in Ma'ili. The home is reported to be on St. John's Road. We're hearing at least one person may be hurt, and EMS has been called to the scene. Now, viewer photos and videos sent in show thick smoke billowing into the sky. Firefighters on scene also reported flames were shooting from the single-family home. We have a crew headed out there, and we'll bring you any developments as they become available.
And just describing these user-generated photos we're seeing that thick black smoke you described there, Ashley. We keep getting more photos like this. If you want to send them to us, you can put them on the bottom of this timeline, this feed you're watching right now. If you're seeing that smoke out there and want to share your photographs, feel free to send them to us, please, via Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, any social media platform you got. In the meantime, we want to get to the latest on the virus that everyone's talking about. New Jersey now reporting its first death as the number of cases continues to grow across the country.
And in California, passengers on board that cruise ship docked in Oakland are in the process of leaving the vessel and going into quarantine. Here's Michael George.
Thousands of passengers are finally getting off the Grand Princess cruise ship in California and headed to quarantine. A few hundred passengers began disembarking Monday. 19 crew members and 2 passengers on the cruise have tested positive for coronavirus. The ship has also been linked to 12 cases from a previous trip, including 1 death.
I have a pacemaker, defibrillator in my chest.
Ron Weisberger and his wife Eva are suing the cruise line's parent company, saying the cruise continued to sail knowing that some passengers and crew had already been exposed to COVID-19.
If we would have known, let's say before we landed in the first port, we would have gotten off that ship.
New York's governor announced a 1-mile containment zone in the New York City suburb of New Rochelle, where most of New York's cases are centered.
It is a dramatic action, but it is the largest cluster.
Schools in the affected area will close for 2 weeks. National Guard troops will deliver food to homes and help clean public spaces. Here in New York, the United Nations is closing its doors to visitors and preparing for the possibility of virtual Security Council meetings, something that's never happened before in the history of the UN. In Washington state, where more than a dozen patients at a nursing home have died from the virus, the governor announced new policies to protect patients.
Residents are limited to 1 visitor per day.
And in Washington, D.C., there's a second confirmed case linked to Christchurch in Georgetown. In addition to the rector of the prominent Episcopal Church, the organist has also tested positive. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
And here at home, starting today, healthcare leaders say every Hawaii doctor will be able to test for coronavirus. But the results will take about 3 days because the samples have to be sent to a lab in Texas. Now, before administering the test, doctors are being asked to rule out the regular flu first. This expanded testing is meant to lighten the load at the state lab. Right now, health officials say the state's Pearl City lab is capable of running 250 samples a week. Each test takes about 3 to 4 hours. But so far, only about 20 people have been tested for coronavirus in Hawaii. We talked to Premier Medical Group's president about the new testing capabilities. Here's what he had to say.
We've had no testing through the emergency rooms. We've had no testing in urgent cares, no testing in physician offices that we're aware of. And the only testing, which has been very, very rationed, have been extraordinarily sick people in the hospital.
Now, Hawaii has 2 confirmed cases of coronavirus so far. Both are men from Oahu. The first patient is being monitored at home and is reportedly doing fine. He was on the Grand Princess cruise ship last month. The second is an elderly man who is in isolation at Kaiser's Moanalua Medical Center. He got sick on a trip to Washington State before flying back home to Oahu last week.
All right, we want to take a look at those closing numbers from Wall Street. Hey, look, we're up almost 5%. That's more than 1,000-point gain. That's a far different cry from yesterday. I'm sure investors are pretty happy seeing that increase there. From compared to last week. We're going to have full coverage for you on all this rocky Wall Street ride today, local and nationally.
Right, and Wall Street bounced back at the opening bell, but then stumbled again after one of the worst days ever. President Trump is trying to reassure Americans he's taking steps to protect their health and the economy from the coronavirus. Deborah Alfarone is at the White House with more on the federal response to the virus.
U.S. stocks opened higher Tuesday, but then fluctuated following Monday's historic plunge. Investors had initially welcomed proposed financial relief to prop up the global economy during the coronavirus outbreak, but experts say it's not enough.
Until we get some sort of positive headline, I think we're going to continue to see pressure on our markets.
President Trump's plan includes payroll tax relief and help for hourly wage earners. In a meeting with insurance representatives, he also said the federal government would help the cruise ship and airline industries.
They're 2 great industries, and we'll be helping them through this patch.
The president then headed to Capitol Hill to talk to members of Congress about his proposals. Mr. Trump's press secretary has said that the president has not been tested for coronavirus, even though he has come into contact with 5 people who are now self-quarantining. Those include Florida Congressman Matt Gaetz, who traveled with the president on Air Force One just yesterday. Also, the president's incoming chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and Georgia Congressman Doug Collins, who shook President Trump's hand Friday ahead of a visit to the CDC. They came into contact with an infected individual at a conference. Lawmakers from both parties had in-person meetings on Capitol Hill this morning.
We consult with the medical experts. As you know, we have physicians here in the Capitol.
I think we can act quickly if we act in a bipartisan way.
And at the Securities and Exchange Commission, which monitors financial markets, a possible coronavirus case has D.C.-based employees working from home. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, the White House.
Meanwhile, Walmart is enacting an emergency leave policy for its 1.4 million hourly U.S. workers that allows them to take time off without penalty if they have concerns about the spread of the virus. The nation's largest private employer said today that a worker at its store in Cynthiana, Kentucky tested positive for COVID-19. The worker is receiving medical care and her condition is improving, according to an internal memo. The retailer consulted with state and local health experts after learning of the case, reinforced its cleaning and sanitizing protocol, and the store remains open after Walmart conferred with the state government.
All right, with this week's rocky economic start, we know a lot of you are wondering about our local stocks and companies, and that's why we got Howard Dykes. We're going to check in with him. He had a special guest this morning on Sunrise. Let's see what they had to say.
Well, after losing 2,000 points yesterday, the Dow this morning has been up and down, sometimes by hundreds of points. Tracking these stock fluctuations is Kale Aloha Kadenia Pua'a, the CEO of Kadenia & Company, which is a local investment firm. And it's interesting because looking at individual stocks, it sometimes is hard at this point in all of this to track what's making a stock go up and down. For example, cheap oil is supposed to be good for airlines, but Hawaiian Airlines is down a little this morning. But Par Petroleum, the owner of the local gas station networks, is also down. So what do you think traders are doing at this point to drive the market?
I think right now what's driving the market is still just the uncertainty. So anytime uncertainty goes up, volatility rises in addition to that. So, a lot of news on coronavirus, obviously it's widespread and we're trying to get our hands around that. So we just want to know the economic effect of the coronavirus. In addition to that, you mentioned it a little bit, Howard, it's a price war between the Saudis and Russia. Yeah. And so oil prices are plunging as a result of that price war. So lots of instability, a time for flight to quality. So investors are just reassessing asset allocation at this time.
And it's not just oil that we're talking about. Of course, there's the original problem of the global economic slowing, which would affect somebody like Matson with their China Express service. But at the same time, you've also got banks which are down this morning because the Fed's action to deal with all of this is to make the interest rates lower, which cuts into bank profit margins.
That's true. I think the bigger issue right now is that global debt is higher than it was after the financial crisis. So we're looking at about $257 trillion in global debt. So anytime you have economic slowdown and you have interest rates falling, there is some pressure on the financial institutions. And so the result of that is a sell-off in the banks as well.
That's a really good point to make. And here's another one which we almost invite anytime we have Cadinho or a competitor on, we invite them to make this point, which is all of these ups and downs are of great interest to computers and traders, day traders. But for long-term investment, you really need to look beyond today's crisis.
You have to have a plan. So it's not too late. It's never too late to have a plan. It's important for investors to just understand first what their asset allocation is. Second, what type of risk they have in their portfolio. You know, our industry tends to say equities have more risk than the bonds, but at the 10-year closing at 50 basis points yesterday, there's a lot of risk in the bond market as well. So again, the global debt and the leverage in the system still has ways to work itself out.
Yeah, it's complicated, and there is a great deal of risk, but you know what? There's always risk in stock investments, and if you have some expert advice to help you, then that will help you get through this, and then you can worry about other stuff like whether you're going to get sick or not.
Now in Italy, Italian civil protection authorities say the number of cases in the country has topped the 10,000 mark. They say the number of people who have died from the virus rose almost 200 in one day. A lockdown is in place for the entire country, with travel restrictions being enforced by soldiers and police, and caseloads are also increasing in France, Spain, and Germany.
A far different scene playing out in China right now. What appears to be a diminishing threat prompted top government officials to visit the epicenter. We're talking about Wuhan here. Our CNN's David Culver reports from there.
The focus here in China has been on a very high-profile visit to the epicenter of this outbreak, to the city of Wuhan, the capital of Hubei province. It's there that President Xi Jinping met with military medical personnel, the folks who have been on the front lines of this fight against the outbreak. He also met with residents. Now, in doing so, state media is certainly trying to portray a more positive side of things, and the president's being there physically does assist in that. It allows people to think perhaps it's getting under control and China is getting a grip on this outbreak, certainly more so than other countries, which are starting to just deal with the beginning of it in some cases. But China is also trying to do that not only to reassure folks, but also to stabilize the economy, because that's something that has certainly taken a hit over the past 7+ weeks. They're also showing progress when it comes to the medical care of people. In fact, it seems that the demand for medical care has dropped so significantly here that they have had to close some of the field hospitals that they opened up to treat patients. They had 14 field hospitals opened up in schools and exhibition halls and stadiums. They're now shuttered, meaning there's not enough patient demand to actually keep them up and running. And we're also hearing about a resumption of some of the businesses. So, for example, here in Shanghai Disney is opening up some of their shops and restaurants. The park in of itself has not yet reopened, but they're still trying to do this in phases. And schools, while they're still closed for many of the students across the country, in one northwestern province, it's kind of a test of sorts. They're resuming school with high schoolers who went back to class on Monday, and it'll be a test to see if this country can fully restart and really reopen to what will be, no doubt, a new normal. David Culver, Shanghai.
Meanwhile, Delta and American Airlines are slashing both the domestic and overseas flights after a plunge in bookings. American, the largest airline in the world, is reducing international capacity by 10% this summer compared to its current schedule. They will decrease domestic flights by 7.5% next month. Delta is slashing international flights by 20 to 25% and cutting domestic flights by 10 to 15%. The company is also on a hiring freeze and establishing a way for workers to sign up for unpaid leave.
All right, here at home, a group that advocates for senior citizens is pressing the state for details on how it's going to deal with the population that's most vulnerable. Our own Lisa Kubota has more on that story. Let's check in with her.
This morning, the Kokua Council brought together the Lieutenant Governor and representatives from agencies that serve Hawaii's seniors.
Older people can be in great danger, so we want them cared for.
There are nearly 13,000 long-term care beds in Hawaii in nursing homes and other facilities, according to the Executive Office on Aging.
Residents are starting to worry about this, worrying about who's my roommate who just came in from the hospital. I hope that she or he isn't carrying anything.
Some facilities that serve seniors have already added safety measures such as daily screenings and temperature checks for employees, visitors, and vendors.
The mortality rate can be as high as 14% for people who are over 80 years old and get COVID-19.
The CDC recommends posted signs telling visitors with symptoms to stay away and sick leave policies that allow employees to remain at home. Visits for residents who are ill should also be restricted.
So if someone has fever or cough or shortness of breath and they are a resident of our long-term care facilities, we want them to stay in their rooms so they don't spread it to other individuals around them and we don't get an outbreak like we saw in Washington.
Green says state officials are also prepared to offer their support.
We'll make the PPE, that's the protective gear, the equipment, for face masks, eye protection, gowns, and gloves immediately available outside of all of our residents' rooms. If you run a facility or you have loved ones in a facility and you don't see it, call me or my staff or call the Healthcare Association or the Department of Health.
Green says that the elderly need to be checked early since they're at a much higher risk and there will be no extra fees for the COVID-19 testing. According to him, seniors will not be charged by the hospital if they're put into quarantine. Lisa Kubota, Hawaii News Now.
All right, thank you, Lisa, for that report. You know, the world of entertainment is also being impacted by the outbreak. I read this morning that in New York, Broadway is discounting their tickets, and now we're hearing that even popular game shows like Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune are being impacted. Both those shows are actually suspending their studio audiences, and I don't know if you can actually hear it on this audio here, but this is them filming one right now. It just doesn't sound the same, really, without that audience there. It's sort of like an empty chamber room there, auditorium. But both shows are filmed in California, where there's more than 100 cases. Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune tape months in advance, so viewers at home, you're not going to notice this change anytime soon. So
that is eerie.
Yeah, and then you have more news from entertainment world, right?
Yep, one of music's largest events will also be delayed due to the coronavirus. Two sources tell CNN that organizers for the Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival will postpone the event potentially until October. Now, the festival typically attracts about 100,000 attendees per day and was supposed to take place the second and third weekends in April in Indio, California. Now, Rage Against the Machine, Travis Scott, and Frank Ocean were scheduled to headline the festival, but no word yet on whether they will perform in October.
All right, that was a lot of virus news there, and we actually have a lot more we can tell you about, and we posted that online on our digital coverage. We have a special section there that's all laid out for you. That's on our app, that's on our homepage. We also have something new that you really should sign up for, and that's our new e-newsletter. You go and find the sign up form there. We're sending at least one newsletter every day, or as breaking news warrants, we'll send you even more. So stay with H&N for continuing coverage. Of course, we're also going to have another afternoon update specifically on the coronavirus outbreak. That usually happens around 3 o'clock. Ashley hosts that, and then again continuing coverage after that today at 5 and 6. Now let's move on to the campaign trail. Bear with me one moment because I'm going to pull up this map here. This is all the states are up for grabs today. 352 delegates. Could get exciting today, folks. That's Washington, Idaho, North Dakota, Missouri, Mississippi, and Michigan. That's the one everyone's eyeing.
Yep, biggest prize of the night is Michigan, and that's where Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are spending most of the day. And tonight could also be a turning point for the Democratic primary as Sanders tries to slow down Biden's growing momentum and the delegate lead. Here's Natalie Brand.
Former Vice President Joe Biden kicked off the day with enthusiastic union workers at an auto assembly plant in Detroit.
Wall Street didn't build this country. Y'all built the country. You built the country.
But tensions rose when one worker accused Biden of wanting to take away his guns. Senator Bernie Sanders looked for last-minute support from voters going to the polls.
We need to win every state in the country. I've been asked that question from Iowa to New Hampshire. Do you need to win? Michigan is obviously a very important state today. It has a lot of delegates up there, and we certainly very much want to win.
Michigan is the big prize tonight, with the largest share of the 352 delegates at stake across the country. And this battleground state could give important insight into the race ahead. 5 other states are also voting today, including Missouri, Mississippi, Idaho, North Dakota, and Washington. Back in Michigan, electability, trade, and health care, some of the top issues on voters' minds.
My sister right now is going through cancer treatments, and health care is very expensive for her. So I would love to see more affordable health care.
Cherie Morgan supports Biden. Paul Sherlock, an Ohio voter, supports Sanders.
Medicare for All speaks to needs of 87 million people, including someone like myself, who can afford health insurance.
Ohio is one of 4 states voting next Tuesday, with hundreds more delegates at stake. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Detroit, Michigan.
All right, let's take you outside. Live video feed coming into our digital center. We're looking at Aloha Tower today. I was sitting next to my desk neighbors in the newsroom, and they said it was getting a little warm out there for a change. The winds are turned off, I guess. Let's hear from Guy Hoggy to get the very latest.
How's it on this Tuesday? I'm Guy Hoggy with your HawaiiNewsNow.com forecast. Variable winds have taken over. We'll see a few light windward and Mauka showers, really not much. Maybe some afternoon clouds, some afternoon showers. But starting on Thursday, this front's going to move in with increasing clouds and showers, maybe some heavy rain and thunderstorms for the weekend. Nothing of the sort today or tomorrow, but there will likely be a few minor splashes, maybe some afternoon showers. And that's because of the light winds. They will allow for some cloud buildups over those interior spots late in the day. For this morning, it's mostly sunny, mostly dry, and those winds mostly under 7 miles an hour. So it's going to be a gorgeous day today, especially early with all the sunshine. There'll be clouds building into the afternoon. High temperatures running to about 82 degrees. And this is what we'll likely see through Wednesday as well. Now, as far as the surf, it will be building tonight through tomorrow, below advisory levels until Thursday. That's when we could see a sizable swell coming in. East shore's running 3 to 6. And with the light winds, conditions will be good pretty much island-wide until that onshore sea breeze by midday. So again, fair conditions today and tomorrow. Increasing clouds and showers Thursday and Friday. Maybe some thunderstorms with heavy rain on Saturday and Sunday. Keep it here in Hawaii News Now. We'll have all your severe weather updates.
Thanks, Guy. Hey, it doesn't look too bad out there. Yeah. I know a lot of people are excited about this next story. Me, not so much. I never saw the original, but tell us about it.
So the stars of Mulan walked the red carpet at the film's premiere at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood yesterday. Let's take a look.
The animated movie is an incredible feat, and watching those hand-drawn frames is something that I think everyone's going to cherish and love forever. I think the thing that I love most about the new version of this movie is that you get to see a lot of those same elements and scenes and moments, but in grand, glorious scale.
What's your favorite thing about your character?
The love of the feeling of having blessed with daughters. Not having daughters, but blessed with daughters. So I think this really father-daughter relationship is really something that we want to echo. We want the audience to hear it even more, so that, cherish your daughters.
The upcoming Disney live-action remake is one of 2020's most anticipated releases, partly because it promises to diverge more from the original film than Disney's past live-action updates have before. Mulan already received a PG-13 rating, making it the first live-action remake from the Mouse House to do so. And don't forget, Hawaii actor Jason Scott Lee stars as the villain warrior leader, Bori Khan.
Very cool. You like this movie, right?
It's a great movie. It's a woman lead,
I love
powerful
seeing
woman story.
The cast too. The diversity is great. I mean, do you know what Christina Aguilera has to do? I'm guessing the soundtrack.
She sings the soundtrack for the original. Yeah, the hit song Reflections.
And then the dress that the star wears to this premiere is gorgeous. I think it has some phoenixes embroidered onto it. I read. All right,
you need to watch it.
I'll get to it. I got Disney Plus. I'll get to it. All right. Let's move on. Some news for all ya Mickey D's fans out there.
Oh yes, we love McDonald's news. So Big Mac fans, McDonald's is offering 2 new versions of its popular sandwich for a limited time. There's the Little Mac, so it's similar to a single cheeseburger, but it comes with that special Big Mac sauce. And then the Double Mac has 4 patties instead of the typical 2. And I don't know if I want to share this, but I'm going to anyway. It has 720 calories and 43 grams of fat.
Are you kidding me?
But who's counting?
I know you're never supposed to look at that stuff, right? No way.
I should just not have shared that. I'm sorry.
No.
Just enjoy.
I'll still try it. I'm sure I will. All right, guys, we got to get to some serious breaking news here, and bear with me once again because I'm going to pull some video into our system here of that breaking news we're talking about at the top of the hour. We have some dramatic flame video into our newsroom from the leeward side.
That's right. So again, there was a 2-alarm house fire in Ma'ili. It's said to be under control at this time. The home was reported to be on St. John's Road, and we're hearing that there was one person who had burned hands, and they were transported to Y&I Comp in a private vehicle. They did not go in an ambulance. And again, this is viewer video coming in. You can see those bright orange flames, that thick black smoke.
Yeah, that is a dramatic fire for sure. And you see the neighbors there gathered around, just seeing what's happening. Quite the activity there in that neighborhood this morning. And that does not look like there's much hope there left for that house. I'd hate to just jump and guess, but that is a severe fire, and it is devastating to say the least.
Yeah.
All right, let's take you outside to a more tranquil picture. That is Aloha Tower. And that's where we're going to leave you today on this Tuesday. We'll be back here at 3 o'clock. Ashley will be for your coronavirus update. This is Now. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Jonathan alongside Ashley. You guys have a great rest of your day.